Awesome. Well, welcome back everybody to our April Lady Leaders webinar series. Not for ladies. We're happy for everybody who may be here because I'm super excited. Everybody, I think, knows of Sydney, but they may not just know of all her superpowers. So I thought we would have Sydney on so that she could introduce herself, kind of give us her background, and then we're going to use all of her wisdom to kind of jump into hiring, recruiting people, and then especially the OM position, how we can find, recruit, keep, promote OM type people in our offices. So Sydney, introduce yourself for those who just may not know, like I said, your superpowers.
You know, what's funny is we just had the summit, right? And Mark, for the first time, well, not for the first time, but introduced me, like singled me out, and someone came up and was like, "Hey, congratulations on your promotion." And I was like, "Man, did I get just like you with the Olive Garden, did I get a promotion on stage that I don't know about?" But
Yeah.
like you mentioned, not everybody knows who I am and what I do. So my official title is Executive Director of Operations for DSN and Front Office Academy. And as of recent, I'm now a founder and owner of FOA Coaching. And I do all of our team coaching and office manager coaching. So I work hand in hand with doctors, practice owners, and now their teams and office managers.
Awesome. So good. So you have a little experience in this, huh?
Yeah, yes. Learned from so many awesome people, right? Especially I used to work for the man himself, Dr.
Yep.
Mark Costas. So those
Yep.
are some pretty big shoes to fill.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, to be clear, you used to work for him in a dental practice. You still work for
Yes.
him, but you worked
Yeah.
for him in a dental practice.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's what I'm
yes.
saying is you actually know what you're talking about here.
Yeah.
You've been around the block a bit, you know what it takes for sure.
Yeah.
And like the nice thing is you were a team member. So I think that gives you such a unique advantage. I have also been a team member, and then I've also been the dentist and owner. And I think when you kind of are on both sides of it, you have such a sense of compassion and grace for both sides. And that's what I think makes you unique is you very much so identify with the doctors and owners and the team members. So, what I want to jump into, because I think this webinar, people are hoping to gain maybe new ways to start recruiting new people, bringing on, hiring, things like that. And Sid, I'm going to let you start with what are some of your ways? And the market's changed for sure. It changed,
Right.
Even right now, it's very different, Mark and I were saying, than a year ago. What are you finding some ways that, whether it be your ads, where you're posting them, what you guys are doing? And Ashley, I'm going to ask you too, what are you finding you're doing differently now?
Yeah. So I have to first start off with you and Ashley are my biggest mentors, my biggest role models, and anyone who have listened to Lady Leaders, all the things that I'm about to say, I've learned from these two beautiful ladies here. And just from self-discovery and really wanting to be more and provide more for my team members as a leader. So the first thing is I hire for culture. And Summer, this is something that you've said over and over again is I hire for culture. Yes, I look at things such as skills and things like that, because of course it will help. But I feel as if you can hire for, you can train skill, but you can't train the want to, the will, right?
Mhm.
I also look for someone that fits our core values and asking questions that really pulls out if they really are a good culture fit for us internally. And again, for my role model, Ashley, I think it was 3 years ago or 2 years ago, she introduced the Ideal Team Player to me. I read that book and completely adopted every single piece of that book into our company. I asked the question, when you hear the words humble, hungry, smart, what does those three words mean to you? And I really try to find out if they really fit. And it's okay if they're not saying all the right things, but are they getting close? Or there's been a few people on our team, right, Ashley, that just nailed it and they're still here with us. But another one of my favorite things is, do you like puzzles or murder mysteries or anything that requires you to problem solve And the reason why is because those type of people are the people that I know they're not going to rest until they can find that missing piece, or they can find out who murdered that person, right? In that murder mystery. They're going to really do all that they can to try to put everything together. And if they can't, they're going to communicate in a way so that they can find it and not just, someone else will handle it. So that's the first thing that I do when looking for someone to hire in that position. But if I have to take a real step back, I need to think about really what is that position and what does it look like? I need to make sure that I have everything ready to go for that person when we do hire them. Again, taking a page out of your book, we have to make sure that we onboard them efficiently. So I need to know that when I'm looking and interviewing, who is going to be a good fit for that position and what are their day-to-day going to look like. If you have no idea, then before you even put the ad out, write that out. In your ads, make sure your ads are fun. Make sure your ads don't sound like they're going to work at and if any CPAs are on here, I love you, heart you. But like they're going to work for an accountant company and punching numbers all day. I mean, no one wants to apply to that job. Make sure it's vibrant and fun. Use ChatGPT and say, hey, these are our core values. These are what we like to do in our practice. Create a job post that's fun, witty, and want to bring someone into our office. So I like to do stuff like that. Taking a page out of your book, think outside the box. If you don't offer maybe medical or dental or anything like that, or 401k, what's valuable to your team members? Is it meal prepping? Is it daycare services? Is it, hey, you get paid vacation, but we'll send you to Costa Rica for 2 weeks or something like that. Something that doesn't cost a lot for the practice owner, but something that's going to show them that, hey, this is a really good culture fit for me. Although they may not offer these things, although pay may not be $76 an hour, everything else hits towards what I value as an individual and not as an employee. So those are the first things that I like to look for. And those are the things that I always tell my practice owners who are looking to hire team members is make it fun, make it not so generic and boring.
For sure. Ashley, anything to add to that?
Okay, so it's so funny because like this is what I've preached too, right? And Sydney, I just came up with this like last week, by the way. I agree on the like make sure that you're crafting unique ads, and we have all kinds of samples and stuff. I will add to this too. I am noticing sometimes you have that unique ad crafted out there and it looks beautiful and you're selling your practice and it's all of these good things and you're not getting anyone applying. And you know what I've done recently is I take that and I tell ChatGPT, turn this into a 1-paragraph ad, and it does. And then I get applicants. So if you feel, I go with the bougie one first, the zhuzhed up, go with that first, because that's going to, convey the message of your practice. But if you feel like you're not getting any bites and you feel like you're just circling, tell it to make it as simplified as possible. And it annoys me to no end, but it's true. Sometimes you will get people who hit on that very simplified ad. And this is my new discovery in the last few weeks.
Yeah. Because there's so many of them, right? That they're really just looking for, it's just like, I always joke, like as a dentist, I'll wrap myself out. And you two know this very well with me. I'm probably only going to read the top line or two. And then I'll be like, I think I got it. And then Ashley says, you didn't get it. You forgot to read the rest. So,
yeah,
it happens, folks. But point being, what I was thinking to myself, and I know I've done this, is I take whoever truly is the best team member that I have currently in that position or in any position, run that ad by them. Would this attract you? Would you read through this? And often what's funny is they're like, no. Ashley, you hired me an incredible executive assistant, and she is the perfect avatar of a culture fit, but that doesn't have dental experience. I run everything through. Would this attract you? Would you actually, and literally one of our ads, she's like, I wouldn't apply for that, just so you know. And I'm like, well, one, tell me sooner. And two, instead of just putting it out. And two, what would? And we did switch the words. And I do agree with you. Sometimes it's the length. Sometimes it's what you're putting in just those first couple lines that people are reading. And another little thing I'm sure you guys have done, because I think both of everything, obviously, that you guys are saying is great. Um, when it comes to where you're placing your ads, also, often we'll really track what marketing is doing in our own offices, but we won't track where our ads are actually working better. So I tell people beta test things. We've tried certain things that work really great in some demographics and not at all for us. Indeed still is one that works great for us, but we've had to get really clever about how we do it because it's getting costly. If you just run the ad nonstop all month, you ladies know, right? It gets crazy expensive. So instead, I'm like, have it go out on Thursday, afternoon, evening, whatever, run it through Sunday, boost it, keep it at the top, pull it down. Do that again, maybe the next Thursday, because that's when most people are going to look anyway, categorically. So little things like that, I think, can at least just keep you at the top, keep you looking, like you said, fresh, keep your ads looking, a little bit less similar to everybody else. Because you're right, Sid. I mean, a lot of times you'll line those ads up and it's almost like they're the exact same office, And so I think all of those can potentially help you just hire somebody that's better. And we've talked before, and I literally just got off the phone today with, sometimes you'll get these really great, perceivably, great culture fits. They'll know your core values. By the way, some of the things I look for, and we just talked about this on our webinar last month. So if you want more questions like Sydney was alluding to, we just did them last month too, to find those high accountable, humble, hungry, smart type people. But I think a lot of times, yeah, those questions that you ask is super, super helpful. I kind of lost my train of thought, but I think asking better questions and asking with the culture fit, I think you can get really specific. If your culture fit person, core value fit would be disciplined and professional, which is some of ours. What are situations that they need to look disciplined and professional? Like I said, one of our questions is, I'm sure you've gone to our website and looked at these certain things. Tell me what you think about that. We want to see what level of preparation, because that's really big in our offices. Preparation is huge. You can ask better questions and get better answers, is, I think, to Sydney's point. Like, don't just ask, like, can you work this many hours? And, here's the
What are your strengths and weaknesses?
Yep. Yeah. My strengths are I just care too much. Right.
My weakness is I work too hard.
And I work too hard. Yep. I'm going to take on too much. But that being said, I think, we've highlighted, like I said in our last webinar, I think with what Sydney was saying, really identifying the people who are truly going to be good culture fits in your questions. And I think, once you've identified those people, I always joke, like, the high accountable people, the really great people, if you get to hire them, to Sydney's point, boy, oh boy, be ready, because they're expecting, like I said, if I hired Ashley, either of you, for heaven's sakes, you would expect a level of, preparedness from me. You would expect some sort of system versus, hey, I'm going to throw you in and let you shadow, right? I have a sneaky feeling both of you would be like, just shadow, I don't know how I'm going to do this, And so it doesn't have to be something extraordinary for onboarding. There just needs to be some sense of, what are we going to do in the first week? Okay, get that far. What exactly are we going to work on in the first 30 days? And just get that far. We've always got to be a step ahead of what are we trying to, have them accomplish. Now, ideally, before you hire, you should know the expectations of that position. And we joke, Sid, I mean, I know obviously you listen too, but like, I think we talk about expectations and intentionality more than anything. But I think making certain that that person, what they're going to be expected to do before they ever come, like you said, Sydney. So, is there anything else we can think about? Okay, ads matter. Who are you speaking to in those ads? Potentially, if you're not getting bites, run it through ChatGPT. Be thoughtful in your approach as to where you're beta testing stuff, and then monitor. Are you getting responses? Are you getting good ones? Switch it up so you're not spending a ton of money someplace that's not ideal. People do tend to look Thursday evening through Sunday for the most part. Ask better questions that are really reflective of your core values. Try to find out, are these people prepared to align with your core values, and ask those types of questions. By the way, ideal team player if you go on their website, the table group, and I'm sure you've done this, the table group website has a ton of great resources, including a lot of questions to ask to find those types of people. So if you haven't been to that website, for people who aren't quite aware of it, that's a great one as well to find more questions.
I'll link some of the questions that I use that's based on ideal team player in the Zoom chat here, and then also in our workplace chat as well. As far as posting to, something I've seen to be very helpful, especially for those dental specific positions sometimes, you know, your team, if you have a team and you have a good culture, a lot of times they're, you know, they're portraying that in their everyday lives, and they have friends, family members who are similar. If you can post on Facebook the open position and then get them to share, hey, we're looking. Sometimes that's a really great, inexpensive way to find and fill those positions. As long as you're very clear too, and we just went through this with, you know, someone our team too. It's, hey, you know, if they come in and they don't work out, you know, just so you know, this is business too, you know, and it's not always, you know, if we're hiring your friend, sometimes your friend doesn't work out. And we had a team member that was like, no, I'm ride or die DSN, and it doesn't matter. And I was like, oh, good to hear. So
Yeah.
anyway,
that goes with
consider.
family members too.
Yes.
Yes.
Be careful, because sometimes when one goes, they both go. So, you know, I was fortunate. I still have Debbie and her daughter 10 years later working for me, but
Yeah.
that can go very wrong, as we all know too. So Debbie, I set that same expectation with Debbie, you know, as well. And she was like, absolutely, if you need to fire my daughter, so be it. So
Yeah. Ashley knows that I've gone through both. I've hired family members and then I've hired friends. And it was just, again, like you said, when one goes the other, but the friend thing actually worked out. She was like, nope, I'm all about DSN. But I think it goes back to understanding that, one, we have a really good culture here inside of DSN in all of our, across all of our companies. One thing that I want to go back to when it comes to posting, I love that you said Instagram and social, word of mouth, friends and things like that. Ashley knows this about me. I am like, I got things to do, GSD. I do not want to waste my time interviewing people who aren't a good fit. You know, once they've gone through, so we actually have an assessment that we do. Every applicant that we're interested in interviewing, before we set up the interview, we have them take that assessment. And so I know in the dental practice, there are questions that you can ask. I know you could curate it to different positions. But keep in mind, if you're hiring more for culture and not so much skill, think about those questions that you want to, like Summer said, you want to find out. So is it, you know, if you disagree with an advice that another team member had given you, how would you resolve that issue, or how would you approach that issue? You could do clinical things like, you know, what is an X-ray? Or what is a root canal? You know, you can ask those clinical questions, but I wouldn't so much focus on clinical, because I think you could really find that out about a person once they get into the practice, or once you start to actually interview them. I do feel like you could find out more of their clinical skills if it is for a clinical position. But I think when you look at the assessment, so that you don't waste your time, try to think about those questions that are going to help you identify this person. And the very first thing is, if you were interested in that candidate and you send them the link and they don't take it, then you just saved yourself some time of interviewing, right? So that's the first thing that I actually like to look for, is before they even get to the interview, have they taken that assessment? And if so, then let's get them in for an interview so that we can see if they're a good fit. I don't so much focus on their score, but it does help me identify areas of opportunity, or maybe I can ask the question a little bit different, or maybe they didn't understand the question. Ashley knows this. Sometimes I just will go in an interview. There has been times where someone truly has tanked the assessment. I'm like, oh, nope, get them out of here. They did not take their time with this. So I do like assessments as well.
Yeah. And I agree, Sydney, we do the same thing, where Victoria, once again, my EA, she's actually kind of that first line of defense, because I don't even want them to get to my hiring team in my office, because my hiring team's exactly like you. Could you imagine Debbie or Julie or Krista, who you guys know, like they would freak out. They'd be like, why are you wasting my time?
Why are they here?
Yeah. But so, you know, she does the exact same thing. So we have just a quick couple questions, and she does it in email. and she puts a date, like, we need this back by tomorrow at 5 o'clock. And one of our questions is, yep, it does have to do with the core values, what resonates with you strongly? Where do you see as a spot that you're going to have to challenge yourself in?
Right.
We also, because we want to know, they got the core values from the very beginning, so they know them. One of them is, what are your non-negotiables? And by non-negotiables, we sometimes explain, I won't drive between offices. I won't drive in the winter. And so we list a whole bunch of different examples out. I won't do this or that, or I'll only do this or that. Because we want to find that out to see, do their non-negotiables, is that something we can even work around? And then we do ask, what are your salary expectations based on the work week of that you're wanting? Because sometimes I have even found in that salary requirements, we're like, holy smokes, this is so far out of the range that, like, no matter what cool bonus system or incentivization I have, it's not going to work with what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
And we ask, what are your salary expectations and are you flexible if there's growth needed? So that we can see if they're like, no, I will not take less than $30 an hour, or whatever. And no, like, it's just a non-negotiable, then we know, okay, like, is this something we should even pass through? The other question we started asking ladies, because I don't know if this is happening to everybody everywhere, but I think so, is we've had a lot of ghosting. So we ask, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being, I'm just testing the waters, 10, I'm extremely committed. How committed are you to making a change in the next 6 weeks? We want them to have to circle. If it's not above an 8, we're not even gonna move forward. Because we want them to have to be congruent with what they just said. Because often they're like, oh yeah, they'll go through kind of the quick interview process. They'll even meet with Julie and Krista and waste, 30, 40 minutes of their time in a Zoom interview. And then they'll just kind of ghost us, is what was happening. So now we're like, let's just find out with your non-negotiables, your pay requirements, core values, how committed are you to even making a change here? So that's kind of
adding that immediately. That is brilliant.
That is brilliant.
Well, and ladies, I'd love to tell you it's made it just to where it's never happened. It's just made it to where, like, if they're going to stink and circle a 6, we're going to say, hey, if you're ever ready to truly make a change, let us know. Like, otherwise we're going to move on to candidates who are pretty ready. So, and we do say in the next 6 weeks, because we've also had it where somebody's like, I'm going to totally do that. I'm going to make a change, like, come October. Okay, great. Tell us in October then.
Right.
Yeah. So talk to me in October then.
Right.
Yep. Because they're going to make a change. They're really adamant in October. And it's April. So those are just a few things for us that I think we've come up and wrapped up a lot of things that when it comes to the ad, when it comes to placement of the ad, money spent on the ad, questions to ask once you get them, how to weed out maybe potentially not ideal people. I think we've kind of gone through that. We may think of things as we're talking about it, but I want to kind of shift gears just a little bit, Sydney, because we do have you here and both of you have such immense wealth of knowledge in this area. But, I kind of was talking about this at the summit that, I've made some of those desperation promotions where I've, been desperate because I'm sitting in my office drowning, I'm sitting there thinking, I have nobody to delegate to, I'm doing it all. And often what I would do is, want to take somebody who is doing an adequate job, as I joked, and promote them into some sort of office manager role, lead role, because I just needed it. Cindy, what do you tell offices to look for? Like, when do you recommend for them bringing on that OM position?
That's a really great question for someone, and we're starting to see a lot of practices adopt the OM role and move their team members up to a lead role. It's still one of those things of a lead front office or a lead DA. But if you're ready to take on, OM, you have to start to think about what's going on in your practice. For me, do I have enough time to take a look at my practice numbers? And like you said, Summer, in a lot of your lectures is, do I have time to actually dedicate CEO time? Or am I constantly trying to put out fires as far as HR or everyone's coming to me for simple questions? The x-ray machine went down. When should we send out this lab slip? Are all those things coming to you where you just feel like you don't have time to focus on your business? That is the time that you need an office manager. And then when you do think about this person, you just nailed it too, hiring out of desperation. I've been there, I've done it too, where I've hired someone, I'm like, I just need someone to help me with this, or that. Ashley's giggling because she's heard me say this before. I'm like, I just need help. Well, what I learned in that is just because I just need help, I'm actually working 3 times harder because this person just doesn't fit that position. I just hired them just to get a warm body in there. And I did myself a disservice. I also did that person a disservice. And now I can't sleep at night because I know that I didn't set that person up for success. And I just hired them just for the sake of hiring them. So I feel as if once you've gotten to that point, and we see this a lot in startups or practice owners who haven't adopted the dental success ways or drink our Kool-Aid, we find that those people who start to realize I don't have time for myself, I'm always taking calls while I'm at gymnastics with my kiddos. People are coming to me for simple things, billing questions. I don't even know about insurance. Now I have practice owners that are calling me like, Sydney, how do I get Delta Dental to pay for an SRP? Don't you have someone to help you with that? If you can relate to any of those things, it is time that you have an office manager, someone that can help support you. But also, I'm really adopting my Jocko right now, extreme ownership. Are you empowering and influencing your team members to handle these things? Are you empowering if you do have someone that's in the practice that can help you with these things? Or are you micromanaging it, hoarding it all because you don't have anybody in the practice and you can't trust anyone? That again is time for you to have an office manager, someone that is an extension of yourself.
And one thing that I would say, Ashley, is, and that the question that just popped up, I may grab that in just a second, but Ashley, what have you seen when it comes to also with offices when they're ready potentially for a true OM? Have you ever helped navigate, that with other offices as well, when they actually need the true OM versus say a lead versus, tell me what that looks like for you that you've seen, Ashley.
I think Sydney really hit it on the head. It's kind of like the levels of course my dog's gonna be barking like crazy at the moment. It's really depending on the levels of tasks that needs to be done and how busy you are, you know what I mean? And especially when it comes to the management of other people, you know what I mean? If, like Sydney said, if you have lots of people coming to you, and especially as you start to bring on associates, I highly recommend having someone who's handling things at a higher level, like an OM versus just, your back office lead and your front lead who might be reporting directly to you. The more people that are involved, the more that, you kind of have to separate yourself from being the bottleneck.
Right.
Because as a dentist practice owner, someone typically trying to balance family at the same time as many of our practice owners do, you just can't have everything funneling to you. And if you have someone who has, especially, HR experience and they can handle, Tanya and Sally and Megan that are all wanting to take time off at the same time as, whatever it might be,
Yeah.
it's all about the levels of delegation. So I hope that was,
Yeah.
No, you nailed it.
supportive
And
of
then
that.
Summer, you taught me this too. When you look at your CEO time, that's when you get the time to really focus on your business. That's the time that you can look at what your production, collection, overhead, supplies, the money that are coming in and out. If you haven't had a chance to sit down and look at any of that, if you hadn't had a chance to, have dinner with your family and get out of there on time, or you're finding that team members don't know who to go to for what. And like she said, you're the bottleneck. That's when you need that person. And I really love something that you said. I think it was in the one with Kelly Dove about, the CEO time, respecting that time and carving out that time so that you can spend, I think your guideline is what, 4 hours? Is it 4 hours a week? At least a half day?
Depends on the practice size, I would say,
Okay.
but yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so it's spending that time. Well, if you were to do that, what will happen? Do you feel like, hey, I can't dedicate 4 hours or however many practices you own? If you can't dedicate that time, it's definitely time for a lead or an office manager.
Right, right. Well, and I think this is such a interestingly nuanced thing that, I'm going to give people potentially like the most expansive view of this I can, which is, in my mind, I think it really comes down to what are the tasks as a dentist that you're doing? If you're the owner of the practice and the tasks that you're doing, and that's where it all started with me, is like, what are the tasks, to your point, Sydney, that I'm doing? And if I'm handling all of this, my first thought is who do I have currently in the practice that's going to make sense, that truly is capable of doing it? I can make certain that they have the bandwidth and time to do it. And then can I delegate that successfully to somebody who's there? My first like line of thinking when I'm in that moment, and I kind of joked about this at the summit, is like, I think a lot of times those feelings are really just leading us to you need something. There's a need there. And we've almost got to take a step back to really figure out, what do I need? And so often, we can make a wrong decision by trying to quickly promote or even hiring from outside the organization, thinking we can bring somebody in who's going to magically just, I'm going to dump all this on them and they'll take care of it. That I almost want to say, like, take a step back instead and like, don't be decisive. Like I said, just be intentional and say, okay, I need something. And like in your words, Sydney, I need help. Correct. I need help. Okay, help with what? What specifically do I need help with? Okay, I need to take some time, and it might be on a Friday. It might unfortunately have to be on a Saturday if I'm not finding it. But I got to figure out, list out, what are the administrative tasks that I'm doing right now that I need help with? Okay, is there somebody truly currently in the office that is capable that I could delegate to that could get the same result, and that they have the bandwidth, or I could give them the bandwidth to do it, whether it be a DA, a front office person. And that's where I would actually start first, because a lot of times things to some point, like, it can't lay even on one poor OM. Like, that's sometimes where I feel like they become the catch-all of everything. So what needs to be, to your point, Sydney, what needs to be delegated correctly to the people already in there? Because I haven't given them the tasks at all. I've just kept it because it's always been what I've done. And instead of empowering them to do it, I've been doing it. So if it needs to be with a DA, which mechanical and equipment, it is my DA's. And ultimately, it also falls under an associate doctor that I have. But for me, it's like, okay, who do I delegate to who's here first with those tasks? Then what tasks are actually, and this is where I think we have to be thoughtful in the definition of OM. What is the definition you want to have of an OM? Because I think that's what's going to determine what this person does. Because I say sometimes we lovingly give them the title of OM, and they are, to this doctor's point, or whoever wrote this, they're not ready to be a true OM.
Yes.
They're ready to be an incredible TC who takes on some project managing for me. That's what they are. So I think we've got to get really specific on the tasks. What are my needs? Yeah. What are the tasks that need to be delegated? Are there people on the team that I can successfully delegate to, that it should be in their hands? It shouldn't even be in an OM's hands. Then what's the definition of OM? Because are they going to truly manage the office? Or are they just going to do some more front office lead stuff? Or are they going to project manage whatever? And then that's where I'm going to put them first. Because I think I've gone very wrong by saying, be my catch-all savior, God bless you, and manage the DAs, And it's like, gosh, there's incredible humans out there, but even the most incredible humans can't do it all. So I think for me, like, that's the progression of how I think and how I then move people into, some people are completely ready to be the OM. But then I think as doctors, if we don't know exactly what that OM is going to be doing, don't bestow the title before you know the expectations and tasks. Otherwise, they become just kind of a glorified TC, and they don't even know what they're doing. And sometimes they get the title office manager, and I don't know if anybody else has seen this. Literally, I feel like a scepter and like a thing go on their head, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh no, shoot, we just made it worse. So yeah. So, I mean, I think that's my process, and I don't know if that was helpful to Dr. Lopez. I think it is, but that's actually the exact process I think I would say in my head, versus OM is like bestowing the leadership of OM and expecting something out of them that I'm not clear on in the first place.
Yeah. I want to add to that, if I could. One of my favorite exercises, which I just did on one of my coaching calls, is I had him write down all of the things, like you just mentioned, that he handles, and that the challenges that he has, the interruptions that he has, write all of those things down. And we actually have a job description of what is an office manager. We have our 30, 60, 90-day training plan. And then what I had him do was, let's compare. Let's see what you're doing that can be delegated to your OM, your office manager, once you have him or her. Then from there, how do you want to train this person? So you just nailed it. And that's the exercise that I actually do, so that we can first find out, do you have someone in the practice who can help you with these things? And every single time I ask that question, I'm like, what? I have this person. She's great. She's great with patients. Everyone loves her. And my follow-up question is, do you think, instead of a manager, do you think this person is a natural leader? And when I say a leader, that means, will someone follow them blindly off a bridge? I know that sounds crazy, but if Ashley told me right now, Sydney, we're going to go to this bridge and we're going to walk to the edge, I know that she has a plan for me and I'm going to go. What I didn't know was that it's not that high, and what we're going to do is we're going to just jump off one step and we're not really going. That's in my mind. I'm following Ashley to the end of that bridge, and whatever happens, happens. That's probably a bad analogy, but that's just how I roll.
I love it. I love it. I was literally in my head, like, that's why I started giggling, because I was envisioning it happening. Yeah.
Yeah, I am telling
I'm going to
y'all,
a better place.
Ashley. Yeah, Ashley is my role model, man. I can't. She's my mentor. She's helped me through so much, and I'm telling you, I will. She would tell me that, and all right, I'm gonna go for it.
But it took us time to get there to that point. Like I didn't lead her to the steepest bridge first. There was some little bridges that we built the trust, right?
Right.
Well,
but and as a practice owner, who in this case you're looking for someone, right? Don't say, well, they're great with this, they're great with this other things, right? They're great as a hygienist or as a DA. Those are the skills that got them to where they are. But what you need someone is who's going to be able to effectively communicate in a way, in a healthy, non-confrontational way, for each and every team member. Someone who is going to be humble, give credit where credit is due. Not when you bestow that title, all of a sudden the princess or queen comes out or king comes out. You're like, who is this person? Someone that's hungry, that's not going to be afraid. Yes, we want them to focus on, top, level things. But if ish hit the fan, are they going to jump in and sterilize room? Are they going to go and help pitch in wherever they can? And are they going to be people smart? Are they going to be smart enough to know, okay, I can tell that Sydney's getting defensive. I can tell that doctor isn't having a great day. You know what, doc? I see they're not having a great day. Here's a nice little cupcake. I carved out some time where you can just have some just private time to yourself. That's the leader that I would follow. And that's the leader that I think every single practice owner should be looking for, because that's going to be the person that's going to be a complete extension of yourself. If they were to get abducted by aliens, is the next thing that I love to say. Do they hold the keys to the kingdom? Or did they empower and influence and encourage their team members to own their role, gave them every single piece of tools and support so that they can be the best team members that they can and help the office run efficiently and smoothly? So yeah, that's the person you should consider.
Yeah. And I think it's so hard, right? Because like you said, sometimes people are incredible at their jobs, and sometimes I hear, well, they've been with me for however long. And I'm like, loyalty is not a skill set, and I know it's a bummer, but, I think instead it's like, I have people who are incredible leaders at a significantly, younger age than some of the people who'd been with me for a long time. And like you said, and this is something I was saying at the summit, is, I think capabilities are incredible, but you can start to spot the characteristics, and all of us have ones that matter the most to us based on who we are and where we're going. And, I literally knew for myself, and I've now, since, Debbie's going to be moving remotely, I've written down the characteristics that matter for me. And yeah, humility is one of them. So if you can't say to yourself, they have all of this, or they don't have all of it yet, then I think you can absolutely say, hey, you're not there yet. This is where I'm excited to see if you can go. And I'm going to lovingly give you small bridges, tasks, to Jocko's point, that might be just a little outside your comfort zone, including communication with team members, which for me is probably one of my number one things: humility and active listening, curiosity. I'm going to put you in this situation and see how you do. And by the way, I want you to be able to do it in front of me because I want to know. Somebody who's
Yeah.
too worried about doing it in front of me is probably there's something going on too. Because I want them to be able to fumble in front of me. It's great. I love it. That's how we work on
How
it.
you learn.
Yeah.
That's how you learn, right? That's I mean, I know that's how I learned with Ashley is I would go in, take that calculated risk, and she would say, well,
Yeah.
that was great, but
Yeah.
here's what I would have done differently. And now I know, okay, well, I have a saying. I'm loving on Ashley today. WWAD. What will Ashley do?
Yeah.
It's my favorite thing. And I always say it with Mark, Addison, and Michael, you know, what would they do if they were in this situation? And I really do try to be a complete extension of them.
And you know, what I would say is sometimes the thing is that's where hiring, whether it be outside the organization or inside, you have to be really thoughtful. And that's where I think for doctors, you know, and I said, like, I know the better I am, like, I don't try to do more, I try to be more. The better I am, the more I'm going to recruit those kind of people and be able to bring them through the processes of empowering them to be great leaders. So I think it always starts with us really getting specific as to what we want and what works in our office. But I think sometimes when people hire outside the organization, that's where it can get tricky. And I'm not saying they shouldn't hire outside the organization. I'm saying when we hire specifically for an office manager, we bring that now newly entitled, this is the new office manager, Becky, into our team that's already established. I've just seen that go two different ways. So I want to talk just a little bit about, I'm sure you guys have too. Sydney's like, oh, I'm like you, yeah. I'm like, we've all seen it. So yeah, Sydney, tell me when you've seen that, right? Because we're talking so much about assimilating somebody who is going to be an extension of us. So what have you
Right.
seen with that?
So I love that question. I'm going to answer that question, but I think there's another part there too of what happens when you promote within. And I'm gonna pin that one for right now. But let's say you do want to hire someone that is outside of dentistry. Um, in this case, I would love to have a conversation with the people that are inside of my practice. Um, if I know someone have openly said that they are wanting to grow, if someone has openly said, hey, you know, one day I want to get to a leadership role. And P.S., every practice owner should know their team's ambitions, their goals, personal and professional. I personally find that valuable that if I know that someone in my organization want to be a me one day, then guess what? I'm going to groom them to be a me one day. I'm going to give them all the support and tools. What happens if they're not quite there yet and you don't see that and you've assessed everything that we just said? Have a conversation with that person. Because what I find that happens is if you don't have an open and honest conversation that goes a little bit like Sydney, hey, I know that you are wanting to be a leader in the practice. You've said several times that one day you want to be an office manager. Right now, I am looking for an office manager, and I do think that one day you will be a good fit. However, these are the things that I think that you can work on. Have that conversation and then offer support of how you can help that person get there. So the next time that you're considering an office manager, that person is now ready to go and you know that you can put them in that seat. What I find is if you don't do that, there's gossip and whispers like, oh my God, Sydney's been here forever. Or Sydney has already said that she wants that position. Why didn't such and such give them that position, right? Those are underlying problems that we do not want to have. So I think being out in the open about it and then also not having that person feel bitter and feel like they were passed over, at least you offered them an explanation and you gave them your honest feedback and support, knowing that I'm going to do this with you so that when it happens again. Right now, don't think that you're there, so we're considering this. I think that's more valuable than anything. Then, once you do hire someone and they don't have dental experience, it is going to be really important that you communicate that with your team beforehand. And when you hire this person has to know how to communicate with people. Because if not, if they come in guns blazing, oh, well, you're doing this wrong, this wrong, this wrong, you're going to have huge pushback. And that one gal, Sydney, who thought that she was the one who should have got this job, is going to be super bitter and not buy in. So before you even bring that person into the organization, again, open and honest communication. Summer nailed it. Be super intentional about what you're doing and the why you're doing it. I think that Sydney can bring an outside perspective. We are focused on our clinical, and we've all have our area of expertise in dentistry. Wouldn't it be awesome if we brought someone in who can see things from a different point of view, and that would truly put us over the edge? If you have that conversation in the beginning with your team members, and you set the person who's coming up, who has no experience, up for success by being able to train them on their leadership skills and communication skills, I think that you'll have a better result than just going in and doing it without talking to anyone. Just going in and not considering the person who felt like, because maybe they've been there longer and seniority and loyalty, right?
Mm.
Maybe that person will take this a lot better. So my first step in that is make sure that whomever you're putting in that position without any dental experience, the first thing you should do is teach them leadership, communication skills. And if you don't know that, then you have to get all the tools and resources. Dr. Mark Costas, Dr. Summer Casmel are some great resources here inside of DSN. How can you really excel or improve on your leadership skills so that this person that's coming in, they can communicate in a way that won't have everybody in defense? And you want to always have people in discovery. Summer, you had a gal on here a couple of months ago, and she was talking about that a bit. And that's something that I think helped me as a leader is whenever I see someone is getting super defensive, how can I reset and have them more curious and discovery and want to collaborate with me versus shutting down by either fight, freeze, or flight? So that's the first thing that I would say for someone who has no dental experience is you're going to have to be super humble and know how to communicate.
Ashley, do you have anything to add to that? For whether you're promoting within or from without, within or without, or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I think the team buy-in, honestly, on any position, we talk about having a hiring team within your organization. And if you are hiring an OM and, even if they have dental experience too, and bringing them into your organization, it's being very clear about your culture and having the team, help in the input of that too. And maybe even, participating in some way with regards to the interview, something that Dr. Costas had done with, he had hired a couple OMs from outside. Sydney was one of them back in the day. Something that we would do is, have the OM go out to lunch with the team, the lead of the team of the, and get to know them kind of on a more individual level, because that's going to help again gives them some ownership in, and makes them feel like they have some say, because they do in getting to know this person and on saying if they think this person would be a good fit for the team.
Right.
Well, and I think, to kind of just add to all the beautiful things you guys, I think, are saying, I think it is tough. If you're going to hire outside the organization, I think the things to really think about is, have you had really good conversations with the people currently in your practice? And that means, to your point, Sydney, that sometimes you'll have somebody who's been a front office person, and in their mind, they've been thinking, what's my growth trajectory here? So we've got to be able to have some sense of one-on-ones where we're asking them, where are you looking to grow? They may be, I have an assistant right now who's on Instagram all the time looking for ways to grow as a DA. You have no idea if your front office is looking at ways, or she just wanted to look at ADOM, and she was like, ooh, this office manager thing sounds great. So having great conversations, I think, with them as to where are you looking to grow? Because these are the needs of the practice. Remember, like I was saying, is what are you actually needing? Okay, well, these are the needs of the practice. So tell me more about where you're looking to grow. And often, like I said, we may be sitting there. I know as a doctor, sometimes I'm saying to myself, like, do they have what it takes? I don't know. it is so great to be able to put them in exactly the scenario that you were going to be having them do on a consistent basis. Because what I find is often when they actually get a taste of what it's going to look like, this is how I feel about associate doctors who are wanting to move to partnership. I'm like, give them a taste of exactly what scenarios you're going to put them in and see how they do. And there's going to be a discomfort. Great. Tell me what you're doing with that discomfort. Because stretching people to the very edges of their comfort zone is awesome. But some people's comfort zone is so small. And some people's is so big. OMs have to have a really big level of, a comfort zone that they can be pushed out of because they are more agile. Their personality type tends to do well with those puzzles. So give them the tests and let them see how they feel. And when they tell you that was hard or I know I didn't do great, no problem. Tell me what you're seeing you're going to be able to do for the next time. And is this something that interests you? Because sometimes what I have found is people make it such a big deal of telling that person you're not the right fit when instead you can show them they're not the right fit, and then they become able to say like, hey, I don't think that's the right seat for me. Hey, no problem. We have other needs in the practice that you can grow into. And I think you may be more successful in knowing that I don't, here's the needs that I'm going to be able to give Sally and Sue and whoever. I think looking outside the organization may be great for these needs. And what I love to have with a conversation with the team is, they're always thinking to themselves, like everybody is self-centered in how they think. That's just human nature, I've decided, right? It's what we all do. And so, if I've gone through those exercises with those people that potentially could take over some office manager needs, and I don't need to bestow the title, I'll do that first. If we really do need, like you were saying, Sid, we're to the point where we need somebody who can truly be kind of that second set of eyes, second to me. They can be that person. Well, then having that meeting with the team of saying, Susie, how we keep running into this, and this issue, how it makes you feel so frustrated? Me too. And I'm thinking that somebody outside the organization may be incredibly helpful to us. Are you seeing that too? Yes. I love to link everything to them. Sally, how you get so frustrated by blank, 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 and they go, yes, me too. Because then I make it about them. So that's why if I'm looking outside the organization, this is what I'm looking for. And I want you ladies to know. I can hopefully get more of a buy-in when they recognize this is all coming back to helping them with their level of frustration or getting things done in the office. So once again, once I have really thought through the needs, what can I delegate to the right people to get the right stuff done? And am I left with a list? There's nobody to delegate to. We put through the exercises. There's nobody there that can fulfill those requirements successfully because they may be capable, but let's just be honest, they don't have the leadership capacity. And they're even telling you. That's so uncomfortable that I don't think I'm willing to grow there, or I'm not there now.
I have to laugh because it's literally, shout out Dr. Mark Costas. It was like 9 years ago. I started as his PA. We had an OM let go, and I'm like, I can be a dental practice office manager. And he did the same thing. He was like, okay, you know how you get super frustrated about these things? Like, do you think you would handle that? And I'm like, we should find somebody else.
Yeah. And that's where I'm like, sometimes I don't have to say like, I don't think you're ready for this. I can show them they're not ready for this.
Exactly.
And here's the thing too, to that point, let's pretend they do that. They do take on the task. One thing I love to say is, to take it even a step further, instead of me immediately stepping in, I'm going to say, how do you think that went? How do you think you did? Tell me what was great. Tell me what you don't think was great. I want to see how self-aware they are, because as you guys know, that was part of my characteristics is they have to be able to assess themselves very humbly and truthfully. If they can't do that, then I can let them know. Now I'm going to interject and let you know, hey, unfortunately, that mission would have failed, and here's why, and I'm just trying to shrink time for you that would have failed, and here's why. And so that's where I want to gauge their level of self-assessment, with those tasks. So if we get to that point where now we need to hire outside, it's an easier conversation, like you said, Sydney, to have with the team and get them involved. And when you're hiring that person from outside the organization, once again, the smartest people outside the organization, they integrate most successfully when they communicate the best and they're the most humble. And they can walk into a culture and say, hey, everyone, I'm so grateful for the opportunity to fill these needs
Yes.
to help you.
Yes.
Not, I'm here to manage you. That's the
Right.
reason I hate the word office manager, is because, like I've said, people don't like to be managed. And I don't want somebody who uses that language. I want them to say, I know these are the needs that I'm here to fill to help you. And the OMs that come in and do that are the most successful ones I see. When they think they need to manage people, I'm usually like, that's going to be the worst fit. And when they come in, all they're trying to do is fill the needs, and they are trying to honestly integrate with what's already there. They're the most complimentary of, hey, I see you doing this. That is incredible. Tell me how did you actually come up with that? Or tell me, Susie, do they name that after you? Because that's incredible. What made you think of that? Um, the best OMs can integrate by, like I said, filling the needs, supporting the people, and that's really it. They don't manage anybody. They assume people are self-managing. They don't step in unless they need to. So
Yeah.
that's my feeling when it comes from outside the organization.
Yeah. I wish we could change the title office manager, because I talk a lot about that, the difference between a leader versus a manager. We're not here to manage. We're
Yeah.
here, we can oversee, we can check in, we have checks and balances and things like that. But our job is to lead our team. If someone's keep coming to you, the X-ray machine was one of my biggest things. And once I discovered that I can show someone, hey, did you try this, this, and this? And when they tell me no, oh, here's what I want you to do. If you tried this, this, and this, I think that will help solve the issue. And it may save you time, because now you don't have to get up from your patient or have your patient, staring at you and come and grab me. Oh, you know what? I can try that, right? I don't know if it was 3 years later, however many years later, that clicked in my mind, that all I had to do was just ask a question. And that's when I realized there's a difference between leading and managing a team. When someone comes to me for a question that I know that they should have, ask them a question back, like, oh, tell me a little bit more about what your challenge is with this issue. And then, hey, have you tried this, this, and this? No, I haven't. Oh, great. Try it.
Yeah. You have the answer right inside of you. Isn't that
Right.
fantastic?
It's just
Right?
empowering them to take
Yeah.
the chance to do it. Yeah. It's just
Yeah.
empowering them.
Well, and that's just it. The best leaders don't want to have to manage. They don't want to manage people. The
No.
best leaders I know, all they do is change the way people think. And it's funny when you were saying, like, if it's the right person because they would follow them blindly. I'm like, in my mind, like, the best leaders I have, they change the way people think. They change the way they turn their face. They change the energy when they're around. And
Yep.
those for me are the ones that I'm like, yes, because I always think to myself, I've had sometimes those people that are kind of the mean girl that get followed, but I think they get followed because people are almost more scared of them. They're scared of their retribution. And so I'm like, for me, I'm like, how do they make people think? What's the energy when people are around them? Is it more positive? Is it less gossip, less storytelling, less all of that? More like thoughtful, more kind? Then I'm going to pick that person every time. For me, it's that person in the office. And honestly, to your point, Sydney, sometimes you're assessing your team and you're like, man, they are so great. They are so respected. They are so smart. But when I stack them against, like, would I want to create a whole team of them? And that's
Yeah.
what I think to myself is, would I want to duplicate that exact person over and over and over? And if the answer is like, no, because, and by the way, I ask that of myself, like, am I holding that level of standard first and foremost? But I think for me, that's when I'm promoting. It doesn't matter if it would be outside or inside. I would want them to turn those people's faces towards a different, higher energy, a different, more positive way of thinking, and do it from such a place of grace and compassion that them being in the room or out of the room, people are better because they've been around, type thing. And that's, like I said, I expected myself too. So I think it's so hard, that office manager title can be the rocket fuel to doctors, or it can inadvertently lead to such a darn detriment. It really can. And I think we're going to have to save it because we have so much, but I'd love to bring you back on and walk through what happens if you do have that OM? What do we do if, unfortunately, like I have, we've bestowed the power too soon to an unqualified person that maybe doesn't have those characteristics? They wear the crown. They're potentially doing lots of storytelling. They're creating silos. We know those people, don't we, ladies? And so what do we do if you're the doctor with that? And then potentially, how do we then hire and onboard people more successfully in that position? Because if we find the right people, I'd love to hear more about, you just said, I'd love to hear more about the onboarding plan and what happens if you currently have the wrong fit.
Yeah.
Remind me of that, because I want to have
Okay.
that on a future one.
I love
We
it.
just out
I
of
love it.
time,
We'll add
'cause
it in.
You've got too
Yeah.
much, Sydney. So
I know. Well, we do have the OM workshop coming up. So I know a couple, like I think Megan's going to be there. She's one of the gals
perfect.
that is here. And I can't wait to actually get to see everybody. I think that, yes, this is definitely a part two, because I have all the things that I just want to just blurt out.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think this is a great start. And if you are considering that OM role, just remember, Summer says this all the time, lead with empathy and curiosity. And if you could at least start there and have that emotional intelligence, if you have someone that's in your practice, just start there first. And I think everything else would fall into place.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay, we did have one more question though that popped up and I want to get it answered. So it said, Sydney, I'm also not a fan of the title of OM. What would be a better title in your opinion? 30-second answer, Sydney.
Oh man, I really love an office leader. But I know that's not like a real sexy title at all, but I'm going to have to get back with you on Tiana, because I really don't have a good title, but one day I think I'll create one.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to throw it out there and see if it sticks.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned. We're working on this.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, ladies, for your time. Thank you for your expertise. Thank you for getting to, having the chance to hang out with you is always fun. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. And we will come back again to answer more questions, but hopefully we were able to wrap up for everybody just some hiring strategies, ad strategies, onboarding strategies to make things more successful, finding the right people for culture, creating a better onboarding system, and how to potentially start knowing when to look for an OM, if you even need an OM, how to do it more successfully, and what characteristics to be looking for. But we'll stay tuned for part 2 of, once you've got them, how do you onboard them? And if you got a not good one, how do we lovingly move them from that position? So
perfect. We'll get that scheduled. Thank you so much, ladies. It was a joy.
Okay.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.